Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the House Husband Diaries. This episode, we are on Clue 4 in The Thrill of the Chase, TTOTC, Forrest Fenn's treasure hunt. Before we get on to clue number 4, I was looking at the video. I don't believe I had, was looking at my notes, of the video, the last video, Not Far, but Too Far to Walk, clue number 3. And I don't think I said something that was really important. I'd written some notes. We had a Raleigh meetup in North Carolina, and I had a note that said, not far, but he walked it twice in one afternoon to hide the treasure. So looking at the big picture, it's obviously not far, but too far to walk. But it's not too far to walk because he, in terms of mileage, because he did it twice in one afternoon. So I know a lot of people have said it's the car, that you drive somewhere, the canyon down mileage, but he did it in one afternoon. I think where you beginning where warm water's halt, and where the treasure is hidden is within, a quarter mile, 500 feet. He said you saw the first two clues, you're within 500 feet. Maybe you could say the first two clues are what I consider the first three lines, to be the first three. And it puts you within 500 feet, maybe put in below the home of Brown. Regardless, I just wanted to say that. I'm not sure if I said it in the last video. So there. Let's see. And then I'll get to that other note later, and kind of like the end. We'll wrap up everything. The end of all of these individual videos. So moving on, clue number 4 is, or line 4, which I would consider clue number 4, is put in below the home of Brown. And after this video, after clue 4, I'll do the other videos, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I probably won't spend as long on them because really it doesn't really matter if you don't have the first clue, if you don't have the second clue. We're getting to the point where home of Brown's interesting to discuss, interesting to think about. Heavy loads and water high is also interesting to think about for me with my imagination. But at the same time, it really doesn't warrant a whole lot of time until you figure out, or we figure out, the first clue, the second clue, and so on. So line 4, put in below the home of Brown, right? So we've got begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk. Put in below the home of Brown. So to me, I put in below. So there's put in, and then there's below. So to me, put in, to me, it's entering a trail, which seems illogical. You're putting in. I know a lot of people have said put in is a boating term. So you put in like a river, you put in, in some body of water. Forrest has said it's not in, it's not wet, like it's not in a river, it's not underwater, and where I believe he said that. And so I think put in is just kind of like, hey, we're just putting in this trail instead of enter. Put in is a more abstract way of saying, enter here. And I think that enter would just be too straightforward. And so then people would just go, okay, this is where I got to enter. So put in, leave some room for interpretation. And so there's a boating term. You put in below, so you put in past that point. You put in vertically under below, but we'll get to below in just a second. So another term for put in, the entering, like I said, and then, one of the definitions, and then I already said why it couldn't be, is beneath the surface of the water. And I guess that's below. And he already said it wasn't in the water, so we're good there. And then there's probably something else I'm not thinking of for put in and below. I'm always going to put that in there because I'm not saying that I'm, I think through things comprehensively. I try to. Let's see here. So, so you put in, you enter, whether it's a trail, whether it's a boating term, Um, could be, below the surface of the water. I just don't think it's any of those. I think what he's talking about is you put in below where the treasure is. And I think it means vertically. And I'll tell you as you get later into the videos why. So, because we have below, you have take the canyon down, below, and then we have up. And I think that's something that's really interesting. So then we get to Home of Brown, and Home of Brown is fascinating to me because Home of Brown was, as I said in a previous video, talked about brown trout, fishing regulations. That seemed so intelligent and logical and things that I would never think of when I first heard about the chase. So you've got trout, but then you start looking at different animals. What could be home of brown? If you go with brown trout, you got brown bear, you've got deer are brown, elk are brown. I don't even know what lives out there, excuse me. You've got all kinds of stuff, animals that are brown. I'm sure there's brown birds, like anything could be brown. And I just think that's brown cow. In the TTOTC in the book, they got a fawn colored cow, and the cow is brown. I mean, the home of brown, if it's an animal, there's a gabillion. I'm pretty sure that's a technical term, gabillion. And I just can't imagine that would be what he meant. Then you have the color, which could be like brown rocks, brown trees. I know some people looked at when you're making paint. I think AGK, the color that is used to make brown is quarried somewhere or whatever. Maybe that's what it is, right? I don't know. And then I think another one would be like a person, home of Mr. Brown or Ms. Brown, or maybe it's Native Americans, they're brown. Skin color, and maybe he's trying to say something like that. I think he said the treasure is not associated, or at least Home of Brown's not associated with a structure, and so I don't think it's an actual house. And so I find that to be difficult to wrap my mind around to say, oh well, which brown are we looking? Which human person brown? I think it's more plausible that it has something to do with Native Americans, a home of Brown, because he loves the Southwest and he loves Native American history and culture. There again, there's so many options. And then if you look at an Indian reservation, where would below be? And, you got miles and miles of a southern border of an Indian reservation. And well, how would you narrow that down? Maybe that's where the canyon comes out. I don't know. Y'all that live out there that have been more involved in this, I'm sure have looked at a lot of this and probably have some answers to those questions that I pose. The fourth option I was looking at for Brown could be somehow rust. We talk about the big picture, time, evolution, memories. So you start looking at these old cars, things rust. Maybe there's like a junkyard. There's something where there's rusty brown metal. It's the home of Brown. And somehow that there's like a kind of this cemetery, this long forgotten, machinery that tells a story about America or people. And so that rusty brown, Forrest doesn't want us to forget it. And maybe that has something to do with the treasure. And then the fifth and final brown, potential brown that I'm looking at is the color bronze. And that's brown and or a shade of brown. And I wonder if he's just being very literal in that you put in below the home of Brown, which is the treasure chest. And I was trying to look on Terry Scant earlier. I've forgotten. I haven't. I can't find it, which is typical. But actually, let me look this up while I'm doing this. And I'm not sure if I wrote it down. So let's see here. I've got it. When Jennifer London of the Today Show asked Forrest, "Who is Brown?" Forrest replied, if I told you that, you'd go straight to the treasure. So I wonder, when she said, who is brown, not where is brown, that, that maybe brown is just the treasure chest. If I told you who, maybe it was indulgence, or maybe, if he told you where. Now I'm starting to question, as I'm recording this, like maybe who is actually a person, but I think also he could just be kind of playing a little bit. So I wonder if you put in below the treasure chest in the hunt, and so you've taken the canyon down, you've gone far, too far, not far, but too far to walk, and then you put in below the home of brown, so the treasure chest is back up the valley a little bit, or back up the canyon, or back up vertically, maybe 10 or 15 feet above you or something, like there's little rocks or a ledge or something. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about with put in below the home of brown, is basically you enter a trail below the treasure chest, and then you work your way back up either the canyon or this vertical side somehow. And then, as you get to the other clues, they'll confirm it, and then you get to the treasure chest, you find the blaze, you look down, boom, you're there. So that's thoughts on clue number 4. If you have any thoughts, agree, disagree, let me know. Look forward to hearing it. Also, a last note, I realize the lighting in this house is terrible, and I try to give you this nice, wonderful picture to look at other than my face, but when it is cloudy and overcast like it is today, this room just does not light up. So I've started to try to figure out how to get better lighting in here so that we can have a better video, better quality. But we'll work on it. Not too worried about it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And please, share, like, subscribe, do all that jazz. You already knew that. Thanks again.